Okay, so let's take a look at the before and after with the Megascans assets here. So this video will be quite a quick one. I just wanted to let you see how the scene was set up so you can get a better idea of perhaps how to approach your own. So the reason for the Megascans assets were to try and break up some of the proceduralism here. We do get a lot of nice, almost unique rock structures, but with the addition of Megascans, you see we get to add in a little more. So it's important to match the albedo as closely as possible, and also the roughness and reflection. But what we get here with this addition is we get some more little unique rock structures, we get some more unique shapes, we get some interest here, we get a breakup on the silhouette, and we add a nice flat area, again just to add some nice difference between what we have here and this flat area here. I've also gone ahead and broken up this larger flat area and added in some rocks here to poke out in between the foliage. I also have some fallen trees just lying here, and some rock structures. One thing you'll also see is the castle here. This was all built using VDBs. Let's just check that out. And of course I have also scattered some foliage on top. This was done in the same way that we showed the tower. Just lots of blocks and then using the spheres to cut out some shapes. And then the VOPs to add some surface detail. And then on top of this, I have the scatters that are assigned to the top faces and also the sides based on a noise and blended so they don't get too high. So to finish up on the lighting, the only thing I wanted to do to improve on this was to add a blocker so we don't get so much light here, and so we get something that looks kind of like clouds. So I have this blocker here, which is nothing more than a grid with some holes in it. And from this distance, we create some shapes that are similar to what you would see when sun is breaking through the clouds. So this is what this looks like. You can see the difference. And what this does is it adds a little more interest to this area here. And it also keeps our attention flowing through rather than being stuck here for too long. So we start here and we jump through and we maybe come up here towards here, or we start here and we come down and our eye can follow up here. Okay, so just to cover some lighting advice again, whilst testing your lighting, I would turn off all the geometry and just keep the landscape. Turn off all the scatters and displacements that you don't need. I would reduce all the samples here. All these guys, you can take these right down. And maybe keep the diffuse up depending on how dark your scene is. And also reduce all the depths. And as you are rendering your scene, you would begin to add these back in one by one until these are as low as possible without creating any visual anomalies. So for instance, we need to make sure we have enough transmission rays to get through the water, enough diffuse rays to add light to the scene, the secondary bounce, and enough specular rays, like we mentioned previously, to make sure we get enough reflections in our objects. The same with the samples. We can start with these quite low and bring them up to 1. I would then set the aliasing sample, so something like 8 and 5. If we still have noise, I would make sure that we check the channel that it is within. If, for instance, you find it in the indirect transmission, let's say we find some noise here, we actually do a little bit, we would just add some more samples to the transmission. But we only want to do this on the channels that we see the noise. If you just go ahead and crank up these anti-aliasing samples in an attempt to get rid of some of this noise, all you are going to do is put up the render times without necessarily addressing the issue. The other place that you can add some more samples is on the light, either for the volume or for the whole scene samples. The areas where you might see this type of noise would be mostly in the indirect light if you are in an interior. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the setup here just before we finish up. We have all of the scatter geometry aligned here. I have my my foreground and background geometry. And then I have all my Megascans assets that I have placed in the scene. And above this, all of the scatters. I'll let you take a look at what they look like within the scene. We have some heather here. This is just stuck to the Megascans asset. We have 2 heathers on the slopes, set up in the same way that we showed in the previous video. We have the pine trees on the background and the foreground. We have some bushes that are scattered using the same setup as these guys, but also around the river. The same with the birch and the saplings. And these guys here are just specific to the rock group. And finally, we have the castle. So that's how the scatters look within the scene. And I hope this is enough information for you to go ahead and finish up the main scatters and texturing within your scene. So we'll finish up with the crypto mats, just a quick extra video so you can set them up. But I would definitely take the assignment this week as finishing off the scatters, texturing and shading your landscape, and beginning to set up your lighting and blockers. And next week we will take a look at the volumetrics and setting those up in your scene, and taking a look at the setup within the scene to prepare it for compositing. Thanks.